Today I'm going to look at another component of the Fortinet fabric, this time the Forti Sandbox, and its role in stopping zero-day threats. History is awash with zero-day threats, right, going 3,000 years back here to the wooden horse of Troy. And generally, they are coupled with social engineering. Humans doing something silly without thinking and letting the bad guy in. And as the old expression goes, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Now, if you've watched my previous fabric videos, then you'll know what I'm going to say here, but I'm going to say it again anyway. So the fabric is broad. It covers everything from the desktop through to the cloud. Why is that breadth important? Well, it maximizes visibility. Visibility enables us to gather real-time intelligence, and there's a difference between intelligence and information. Information, like you get in old-fashioned antiviruses, is stale. It's past the event and it's not fit for purpose for zero-day threats. Real-time intelligence is something that you gather in the here and now, and you must use in the here and now. And that's where the integration comes in, right? It's all these components across the broad threat landscape sharing this real-time intelligence in real time and gathering a really accurate view of what's happening at any point and at every point. And then using that real-time intelligence to take automated action as close to the source of the threat as possible. No, I haven't gone mad. I haven't decided to change the video to one of forestry. But there's that old expression, not being able to see the wood for the tree. All right. And believe it or not, if you've got a really keen eye, you may already have seen him, but there is a hunter camouflaged in this picture. And there it may be a she, I don't know, he or she is hiding and waiting for their quarry to come past. Now, unfortunately, in an environment like this, typically when the quarry, be that a deer or whatever, by the time they realize that the hunter is there, it's too late. And that's what we want to avoid in our environments. So let's just look at our environments. Bad stuff is coming into the environment, typically via a download. Now that download could be an active download from the cloud. It could be somebody clicking on a link within an email, but it doesn't matter, right? It's being downloaded from the outside world. Now, hackers are smart. They know the way traditional antiviruses work. Traditional antiviruses work on a signature. It's something you already know, but here we're dealing about zero-day threats. But modern antiviruses also have other tools like heuristics, like behavioral anomalies detection that they can look at. So even if they don't have a signature, they can look at how the file is interacting with the underlying operating system to say, this doesn't look quite right. I'm going to suspect that it's suspicious and block it. So the bad guy gets around this by, instead of sending the user, or rather containing in that download the full package, it's simply a dropper. And that dropper then launches in memory. It's called a fileless attack, reaches out to what's typically a compromised website where the main payload resides. The main payload comes down, also launches in memory, and then starts going through its polymorphic phases to obfuscate itself from the malware, anti-malware software. Then reaches out to the bot herder to say, hey, I've got another victim here. The bot herder says, oh, that's great, thank you very much. I've now encrypted your machine and I would like X amount of US dollars or whatever currency you're in to decrypt that. And then, unfortunately, even though they may promise to remove the malware, it often stays resident on your machine to spread to other organizations and other machines, and you become part of a greater botnet. So how do we deal with this? Well, this is where the fabric and the multiple components coming together helps. So when you download that dropper, it does get to the FortiGate. Now, the FortiGate will let that file through. It has to, otherwise it in itself would become a conduit for denial of service. But at the same time, it sends a copy of that file to the Sandbox for analysis. Now, of course, that file has now come through, so it's still a risk. But this is where the Forti client comes in, because that file is going to end up on an endpoint machine, right? And if that endpoint machine is running Forti client, then Forti client will lock that file. It'll say, hey, this has been downloaded. I don't know what it is. Yes, I've got antivirus built in, but like any antivirus, this doesn't match one of my signatures, and I've looked at it with my heuristics and I can't find a match. So excuse me, instead of just saying, well, it's trusted, I'm going to take the eternal pessimistic view, and I'm going to lock it, and I'm also going to send it to the Sandbox. Now, the Sandbox doesn't care that it gets 2 copies. It's irrelevant. It looks at them, says, okay, this is the same, throws the other one away, and continues its analysis. Now, it then acts as a proxy. It now behaves like the endpoint. It interacts with that dropper. It reaches out to the website. It then downloads the main payload and then reaches out to the botnet. But now, because it's now established that this is malicious content, it now blocks that file from coming down, right? So what that means is that obviously you're now protected. That bad stuff hasn't got through to your endpoint. Now what it then does is it simultaneously sends updates. So remember that it looked at that dropper, it looked at the main payload. So by looking at both of those, it was able to create a new virus signature for that malware. It also looked at the website that dropper reached out to get the main payload, and it updates its malicious URL database. And then when that payload reached out to the bot herder, the Sandbox updated the botnet IP database. So those are 3 things that have been updated in that single file package update and sent to both the FortiGate firewall and to the endpoint. Now, why does that matter? Why don't we just send it to the firewall? Why do we have to send it to the endpoint as well? Well, you're not always going to be sitting behind that firewall. At some point, you could be sitting in a coffee shop, at an airport, at home. So you need to be protected when you're not sitting behind your FortiGate firewall. The Sandbox then sends that file to FortiGuard Labs, which then disseminates that information across all our 600,000 plus customers around the world to update their system. So now we have become an intellectual, safe, security-based botnet, if you will, crowd-based intelligence, sharing real-time intelligence with all our customers around the world to protect them from this nefarious traffic. So now let's have a look at that. Here are the 3 components. I've got my FortiClient, which manages and sends the policies to the FortiClient endpoint, the FortiClient endpoint management server, I meant to say. And this allows me to send multiple personalities down to the FortiClient. So FortiClient, don't think of it like an endpoint agent. Think about it more like a FortiGate firewall for the endpoint, because I've got SSL VPNs. I can do zero trust on it. I can do full web filtering, URL filtering, vulnerability assessment scanning, real-time malware protection, which I'm not using in the purposes of this video. So if I come here to this profile, you can see the antivirus is off because I don't want to use the antivirus. I want to show purely the capabilities of the Sandbox. So in this case, I've switched on the Sandbox profile. We do application firewalling as well. All right. Now, here's the Sandbox. You can see here that the Sandbox has detected in the last 24 hours 10 malicious files. And we can see its most current malware package is sitting at 4111. All right. So what it will be then doing is sharing that malware package with the Sandbox. Now, here are the fabric connectors. This is where we start gluing the components in the fabric all together. So I've got the EMS, I've got my FortiAnalyzer, which is not just a logging repository. It also acts as my indicator of compromise machine learning engine. And I've got my Forti Sandbox here as well. Now there are other components as well as third-party components that you can integrate with the FortiGate and the fabric as a whole. If I drill within here, we can see here that my dynamic malware detection file is 4111, which correlates with what we had here on the Sandbox. So we can see that the Sandbox has pushed that to the FortiGate, and we can see that I've got entries there, right? Now, I can also see here that I've got a website entries. So these are the URLs. So I'm not just the antivirus, as I mentioned, but also the URL entries in there as well, in terms of where the malicious files came from. And there were 2 clean files that came down there as well. Now, if we come to the 40 client, here we can see, if I go to About, I can see that this has also got the same. So this is showing you that merging, that distribution of that real-time intelligence from the Sandbox to the FortiGate and the 40 client. And if I come to Sandbox detection, I can see that this endpoint has submitted 5 files. There were 5 0 days, 0 clean, 0 pending, and the last one was at 9:47. Okay, now what we're going to do now is we're going to download. Now, I say this as a disclaimer. This is a real website, all right? This is not something which has been staged by Fortinet. If you choose to go to this website, it's on you. Don't come crying to me if you end up getting infected. This is for security professionals to do what I'm doing here, testing, all right? So, as I said, these are not made up test viruses. They are real viruses. So I'm going to download one here. Let's find one. And because this is real time, trying to find one that hasn't been used before might be difficult, but let's give it a go. So I clicked on there. I'm now going to go download sample, and I'm going to download that. Now that one's been found before, so let's try find another one. Let's go back to that website. Let me refresh it. Hopefully there's something new here. Let me just refresh this. As I said, please don't play willy-nilly with this. It can cause a lot of trouble in your environment. So I'm going to try that file now. Okay, it's thinking about it. Let's just see here. Download this. Okay, so that downloaded. All right, so now this is my web browser saying it could be dangerous. I'm going to say keep that because I want it kept. All right, now what will have happened, even though the browser said to me, do I want to keep that? There you go. So there's the Sandbox. The Sandbox has checked it. That was how fast it checked it, and it's quarantined it already. All right, so if I look here, all right, there's this here has now been quarantined. So my clock on my Sandbox is on my Windows. This Windows virtual machine is slightly out, but you can see the last one was that one that I showed you, and this one has now been quarantined. And if I go to my downloads directory here, there's nothing in there. All right. Now, the last update package was 4111. You can see here already it's 4112. So I've now got that new malware package has been sent down, and that machine, that file was quarantined. Now, it sometimes takes a little bit longer for that. It just depends on the synchronization time. Oh, there we go. In fact, 2 signatures were updated in that period of time. So now it's 4113 on the FortiGate. Let's just update here. 4113. So it's something else. There was another embedded file within that the Sandbox has detected. So it quarantined it on the FortiGate, and then as part of that multi-stage analysis, it went from there and it then found another issue in here. And we can actually view that. Can go within there. All right. And here are the various files, and we can drill into those and see what the story is with those files. Okay, what it was, where it came from. And you can get a lot of analytics from here. You can see it was from the Forti client, from the user, the destination IP address, and you can even drill down and then find the tree view in terms of what was found and why it was deemed malicious and so forth. All right. Now, if I just come back here, this one may have updated or will update soon to 4. There you go. So this one is now on. So again, we've got that synchronization between those databases. Now let's go and try and download that file again. If I click download here, it will tell me that the token has already been used. So I'm going to download that. And there you go. So the first time, it allowed me to download it because it was a 0 day. Now the Sandbox has done its analysis. it's deemed that that was malicious. It sent those updates both to the FortiGate and to the Forti client. And this time it didn't even get as far as the Forti client needing to deal with it, because the FortiGate dealt with it by itself. And we can double check that by coming to, here we go, FSA malicious file. All right, and we can come in here and we can see that the file was blocked. All right, malware and so forth. And you can see the file was reported infected by the Sandbox. Now remember, on that endpoint, I had no antivirus running here, right? The antivirus feature was not active. I'll show you that. Let's come along here and let's go along to malware protection. This is the profile I'm using. And let's switch on all the bells and whistles. So real-time protection, anti-ransomware, anti-exploit. All right, I don't need the cloud-based because I'm using my own Sandbox removable media, so I can scan for things like USB, CDs, and so forth. I'm going to leave that off. Now, it's not there yet. What happens is FortiClient reaches out, in this case, every 30 seconds. Now, this is, you can configure this. By default, it's 60 seconds. I fine-tune this one down to 30 seconds. You can be as aggressive as you want on this. It's up to you as the administrator. But it enables you, as I said, to switch on and off all these features of the FortiClient as you feel necessary in your environment. You can see they're syncing, and it will then say that it's got an update from EMS in a few seconds. There you go, FortiClient EMS, and there's my malware protection there. Okay. Now, the reason it's saying real-time protection off there is I've also got the FortiGate EDR, which is our endpoint detection and response advanced client here. All right, but I've actually switched off that profile so that we could show that the Sandbox was working. All right, so hopefully that was clear, and I hope if you decide to go forward with Fortinet products, you'll be able to see the benefits that I've just outlined here. Thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.